Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. My life, as I knew it, ended on a Tuesday, not with a bang or even a whimper, but with the scent of old paper and a line of forgotten Latin. Before that Tuesday, I was Jamie Navarro. If you were a student at the University of Texas, you might have known the name. I was the starting pitcher for the Longhorns, the guy with the 95 mile-per-hour fastball and a future that felt as solid and straight as the seams on a baseball. My world was chalk lines, resin bags, and the satisfying thud of a ball hitting the catcher's mitt. It was a simple, disciplined life, and I loved it. My best friend, Leo, was the complete opposite. Where I saw the world in terms of stats and mechanics, he saw it in star charts and mysterious energies. He was the kind of guy who'd spend his weekends in dusty old bookshops looking for occult texts instead of at a bar watching the game. He was weird, sure, but he was my kind of weird. We'd been inseparable since freshman year. Two sides of the same coin. That night, a damp chill had settled over Austin. I'd just come from a grueling 3-hour practice, my muscles aching with that good, familiar burn. My arm felt like a lead pipe, but my spirit was soaring after striking out our star batter 3 times in a row. I was walking back to the dorms when my phone buzzed. It was Leo. "Dude, ditch the protein shake. Meet me at the Gilded Mug. Found something you have to see." Curiosity got the better of me. The Gilded Mug was our spot, a cozy, perpetually dim coffee shop that smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon. I found Leo tucked away in our usual corner booth, a triumphant grin on his face. In front of him on the table, looking ridiculously out of place next to his half-eaten muffin, was a book. "Don't tell me," I said, sliding into the booth and dropping my gym bag with a thud. "You finally found a spell to make you taller." Leo rolled his eyes, but the grin didn't fade. Funnier than that, my friend, I found a little treasure. He gestured to the object. It wasn't just a book, it was an artifact. It was bound in dark, cracked leather, with no title or markings on the cover. A faint, musty smell rose from it, the smell of time itself. It had been wrapped in a piece of what looked like faded black velvet, which now lay beside it like a shroud. "I found it under an old park bench over by the river," Leo explained, his voice hushed with excitement. "Just sitting there, wrapped up in this cloth, like someone left it there 100 years ago and forgot about it." I picked it up. The leather was cool and strangely soft beneath my calloused fingertips. It felt heavy, substantial. I opened it carefully, half expecting the pages to crumble to dust. They didn't. They were thick, yellowed parchment, covered in elegant, handwritten script. The language looked like Latin, but it was interspersed with symbols I didn't recognize, zodiac signs, alchemical notations, and strange, spidery sigils. "What is this thing?" I murmured, tracing a drawing on the first page. It was a beautiful, intricate illustration of a hand mirror, but inside the mirror's reflection, there were 2 faces, perfectly split down the middle. One was clearly a man, with a strong jaw and short cropped hair. The other was a woman, her features softer, her hair long and flowing. They were distinct, yet they somehow shared the same eyes. "Beats me," Leo said, leaning in closer, some kind of grimoire, maybe a personal journal of a 17th century wizard. "All I know is, it gives me a serious vibe." I chuckled. Flipping through the pages, each one was a work of art filled with the same strange script and detailed drawings of constellations, plants, and human figures. "Maybe it's a book to summon a girlfriend for you. Man, you could use the help." Leo shoved my shoulder playfully. "Hey, I have game. It's just esoteric game." Right. I stopped on a page that seemed different from the others. The text was arranged in a circle around a complex drawing of a solar eclipse. The Latin here seemed simpler, more direct. I could almost make out a few words from the 2 years of it I was forced to take in high school. "Speculum anima mutatio," I read aloud, my voice clumsy. Something about a mirror, a soul, and a change. "Dude, maybe you shouldn't just read it out loud," Leo said, a flicker of genuine nervousness in his eyes. I laughed. "What, you think I'm going to unleash some ancient demon in a coffee shop?" "Relax." I pointed to a specific line. "It's ink a slightly darker shade than the rest. Look at this one. Corpus verto in umbra speculi." I leaned in, trying to get the pronunciation right. My body turns in the shadow of the mirror. The moment the words left my lips, something happened. The warm, yellow lights of the gilded mug flickered and died, plunging our corner of the shop into darkness. The cheerful buzz of conversation from the other tables seemed to fade into a distant hum. The chill from outside vanished. In its place, a strange, prickling heat bloomed in the center of my chest. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was deeply, fundamentally wrong. It spread like wildfire through my veins, down my arms, into my legs, making my fingertips tingle and the hairs on my neck stand on end. My heart hammered against my ribs. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and the world tilted on its axis. I gasped, dropping the book onto the table with a loud thud. My hand flew to my chest as the heat intensified, a searing electric current that made every muscle in my body clench. I felt myself sliding from the booth, my limbs suddenly weak and uncooperative. Jamie, what's wrong?" Leo's voice sounded far away, distorted. I tried to answer, but my throat was tight. The heat was overwhelming, a fever dream taking hold in seconds. I squeezed my eyes shut, and in the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw the drawing from the book, the two faces in the mirror, their shared eyes staring back at me. Then the sensation crested, a silent explosion inside me, and just as quickly as it came, it receded, leaving me weak and trembling on the floor. The lights flickered back on. The chatter of the coffee shop returned to its normal volume. A few people were staring over at us. I was slumped against the booth, breathing heavily, a cold sweat plastering my t-shirt to my skin. "Dude, are you okay?" Leo was kneeling beside me, his face pale with shock. You just collapsed." I pushed myself up, my body feeling strangely light, almost hollow. I don't know," I stammered, my voice sounding thin. "I just felt weird. A hot flash or something." "A hot flash? You're 21. He helped me back into my seat and picked up the book. He opened it to the page I'd been reading from. His eyes went wide. What I asked, my own heart starting to race again. He turned the book around for me to see. The page was blank. Not just the line I had read, but the entire page, the circular text, the drawing of the eclipse. All of it had vanished completely. The parchment was empty, as if the ink had simply evaporated into thin air. We stared at it, a heavy, disbelieving silence hanging between us. Leo slowly closed the book. "Okay," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We're going home, now." Back in our dorm room, we tried to rationalize it. A power surge, a trick of the light. Maybe the ink was some kind of heat-sensitive oddity that reacted to the warmth of my hand. I told myself the feeling in my body was just a panic attack, a sudden dizzy spell brought on by exhaustion from practice. We were two logical guys. Even with Leo's supernatural hobbies, there had to be an explanation. But when Leo went to take a shower, I picked up the book again, my hand trembling slightly. I opened it to the first page, to the drawing of the mirror with the two faces. As I stared at it, I could have sworn I saw the ink shimmer, a faint silvery light pulsing just beneath the surface. I blinked, and it was gone. Just a drawing, an illusion. That night, I fell into a deep, uneasy sleep. I dreamt I was floating in a warm, dark space. I couldn't see my body, but I could feel it, and it was wrong. It was too light. The familiar bulk of my shoulders and chest was gone, replaced by something softer, more delicate. I felt hair, long and silky, brushing against my cheeks and back. I lifted a hand to touch my face, and the fingers that met my skin were slender and smooth, not the calloused, blunt fingers I'd known my whole life. In the dream, I found myself standing in front of a mirror. The person staring back was a stranger, a girl. She had my dark brown eyes, but everything else was different. Her face was heart-shaped, with high cheekbones and full lips. Her hair was a cascade of caramel brown waves that fell past her shoulders. She was wearing my oversized practice jersey, and it hung off her small frame, the collar slipping to reveal a delicate collarbone. She smiled, and it was my smile, but it looked completely new on her face. Then she laughed. The sound was the most shocking thing of all. It wasn't my voice. It was light, clear, and musical. It was the laugh of the girl in the mirror, and it echoed in my head as my dream world dissolved into darkness. It was. I told myself, just a dream, a very, very weird dream. I was wrong. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was the light. It was a soft, gray morning light filtering through the dorm room window, the kind I'd seen 1,000 times before. But something was different. It felt softer. The second thing was the weight, or rather, the lack of it. I always slept on my stomach, a habit from years of trying to protect a sore pitching arm. I was used to the solid, reassuring pressure of my own body against the mattress. This felt different. I felt delicate. My limbs seemed to have less gravity. And the third thing was the scent. My pillow didn't smell of the faint, musky scent of my own sweat and shampoo. It smelled of something floral and sweet, like vanilla and freesia. My eyes fluttered open. I was tangled in my sheets, my body feeling sluggish and strange. I rolled onto my back with a groan, and that's when I heard it. The groan wasn't mine. It was higher, softer. My hand flew to my throat, and the skin I touched was smooth. The column of my neck slender. There was no trace of the familiar Adam's apple I'd unconsciously traced with my fingers 1,000,000 times. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced the fog of sleep. I threw the covers off and sat bolt upright. My oversized gray t-shirt, the one I'd worn to bed, was falling off one shoulder, my shoulder. It was narrow, graceful, and pale. I looked down. My chest was not my chest. There were breasts, not large but soft, full, and unmistakably female, pressing against the worn cotton of the shirt. A scream built in my throat, a raw, terrified sound. But what came out was a high-pitched shriek that was utterly alien to me. It was the voice from the dream. I scrambled out of bed, my legs shaky and uncoordinated, and stumbled toward the full-length mirror hanging on the back of our closet door. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, each beat a shockwave of pure, unadulterated terror. The face that stared back at me was the girl from my dream. It was me. And it wasn't. The dark brown eyes were mine. I knew their shape, the exact pattern of the gold flecks in the irises. But they were framed by long, dark lashes and set in a face that was soft and heart-shaped. My hair was a mess of caramel brown waves that tumbled past my shoulders. My body, my God, my body was a complete stranger. I was shorter, my familiar 6'1" frame replaced by a more petite build, maybe 5'7", the broad, muscular shoulders I had spent years building in the gym were gone, replaced by a delicate slope. My waist curved inward, and my hips flared out in a way that made my boxer shorts, which were hanging loosely on me, look absurd. I touched my face. The girl in the mirror copied the motion. My fingers were long and slender. My skin was soft. I opened my mouth to say my own name, to ground myself. Jamie. The name came out in that light, airy voice. It sounded wrong. It sounded like a girl trying to say a boy's name. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't happening. This had to be a hallucination, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My eyes darted around the room, searching for something familiar, something real. My gaze landed on my phone. Charging on the nightstand, I snatched it up, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The lock screen lit up. It was a picture of me and Leo at a football game last fall, but it wasn't the me I knew. It was the girl from the mirror, wearing my Longhorns beanie, grinning at the camera, and standing next to her, arms slung casually around her shoulders, was Leo, looking perfectly happy and normal. My thumbprint, somehow, still unlocked the phone. I fumbled with the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. I opened my contacts. My own name at the top of the list wasn't Jamie Navarro. It read Jasmine Jazz Navarro. My photo gallery was a minefield of a life I'd never lived. There were pictures of me of Jasmine with a group of girls in softball uniforms, their arms around each other. Pictures from a family vacation, with my parents smiling next to a daughter I never knew they had. Selfies with Leo. Goofy faces, candid shots. Every picture, every social media post, every text message confirmed the impossible. In this world, Jamie Navarro didn't exist, only Jasmine did. Just then, the door to the ensuite bathroom opened and a cloud of steam rolled out, followed by my roommate. Except it wasn't my roommate, Mark. It was a girl with bright pink hair, a towel wrapped around her body. She glanced at me, completely unfazed. Whoa, you look like you've seen a ghost. Let me guess, you forgot about that midterm paper for psych again, didn't you? I just stared at her, my mouth hanging open. Jazz, hello, she waved a hand in front of my face. Earth to Jazz, you good? You're gonna be late for softball practice if you don't get a move on. Jazz, she called me Jazz. My mind was screaming. I didn't play softball. I played baseball. My roommate was Mark, not some girl named. I frantically searched my memory, and a name popped into my head. Unbidden. Miranda. I'm fine. I managed to choke out, the words feeling foreign in my new mouth. Miranda shrugged, grabbing some clothes from her dresser. Whatever you say, just don't be the reason Coach makes us run extra laps again. She disappeared back into the bathroom. I sank onto the edge of my bed, my head in my hands. This was real. The book, the spell. It had done something. It hadn't just changed me. It had changed the entire world around me. It had rewritten reality. And I was the only one who remembered the first draft. No, not the only one. My fingers flew across my phone's screen, my muscle memory still intact even if my body was wrong. I pulled up Leo's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I even say, hey Leo? It's Jamie, except I'm a girl now and my name is Jasmine. Also, the whole world thinks I've always been a girl. You remember me, right? He'd think I was insane. But I had to try. He was my only anchor in this nightmare. I hit dial. It rang twice before he picked up. Hey, what's up? His voice was a lifeline of normalcy in a world gone mad. Leo, I breathed, my voice trembling. It's me. There was a pause on the other end. Jazz, you sound weird. Are you okay? My heart sank into my stomach. He didn't remember. He called me Jazz. The curse had gotten to him, too. It was over. I was alone. Jazz, he repeated, a note of concern in his voice. Tears pricked at my eyes. I didn't know what to do. Desperation took over. No, I whispered, my voice cracking. It's Jamie, Leo, you have to remember me. Please, Jamie Navarro, your best friend. We play baseball. We found a book last night. The line went dead silent. For a second, I thought he'd hung up. Then, I heard him take a shaky breath. Jamie, he whispered, his voice tight with disbelief. What the hell is going on? I just got a weird text from your number saying it's still me. I thought it was a prank. Relief washed over me with such force that my knees went weak. I almost collapsed. You remember. I cried, the tears finally spilling over and running down my unfamiliar cheeks. Oh God, Leo, you remember? Remember what's happening? Where are you? He asked, his voice a frantic rush. Meet me, I said, my voice thick with tears. The gilded mug. In 10 minutes, please. I'll be there. I hung up and stared at my reflection again. This was my reality now. Jasmine Jazz Navarro. I had to face him like this. I had to face the world like this. A new memory. One that wasn't mine but felt like it was. Surfaced. It was a memory of Jasmine, standing in this exact spot, feeling a flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach because she was going to see Leo. She had a crush on him, a huge secret crush that she confided only to her diary. My head throbbed. 2 sets of memories, 2 sets of feelings were swirling inside me. The brotherly love Jamie felt for his best friend, and the secret, romantic longing Jasmine felt for hers. They were both there, tangled together, fighting for space in my confused mind. I was Jamie, the guy whose world had been stolen, but I was also Jasmine, the girl who was living in it, and right now, I didn't know which one was more real. Getting dressed was the first true test. It was a humiliating, disorienting ordeal. My closet wasn't my closet. My sturdy jeans, worn-in hoodies, and racks of team jerseys were gone. In their place hung an array of clothes I wouldn't have been caught dead in 24 hours ago. There were soft sweaters, tank tops in a dozen colors, a few sundresses, and several pairs of pants that were far too tight and flimsy to be called jeans. Miranda poked her head out of the bathroom. Hey, you're not seriously going to meet Leo in your pajamas. Are you wearing that cute blue top he likes? My brain short-circuited. How did Miranda know I was meeting Leo? How did she know he liked a specific top? The implanted memory supplied the answer Jasmine had texted Miranda this morning. gushing about Leo asking to meet for coffee. My fingers had sent the text, but my mind, Jamie's mind, had no recollection of it. After Miranda retreated, I rummaged through a drawer and pulled out the items she must have meant. A pair of fitted dark-wash jeans and a sky blue V-neck top made of some kind of soft, clingy fabric. And underneath them, a collection of underwear that made my face burn with a mixture of shame and morbid curiosity. Bras, lacy, padded, underwired contraptions of feminine engineering. I fumbled with one, a simple beige t-shirt bra. It felt like trying to solve a puzzle with one hand tied behind my back. The straps, the clasps, the sheer alienness of it. After several failed attempts, a flicker of Jasmine's muscle memory kicked in, and I managed to hook it behind my back. The feeling was bizarre. It was restrictive, yet supportive. The underwire pressed against my ribs, and the straps dug slightly into my new narrower shoulders. I felt caged. Putting on the jeans was another battle. I was used to loose-fitting athletic cuts. These were skinny jeans. They hugged every new curve of my hips and thighs. The sensation of the denim stretching over my softer skin was unnerving. The blue top was the final piece. It clung in ways I wasn't used to, outlining the shape of my breasts and the new line of my waist. I stared at myself in the mirror. I looked like a girl, a normal girl getting dressed to meet a friend for coffee. There was no trace of Jamie Navarro left, and that terrified me. But as I turned from side to side, a different feeling crept in, something quiet and unsettling. The clothes, fit, they looked right on this body. Looking at the smooth lines and soft silhouette, a tiny, traitorous part of my brain admitted that it didn't look bad. It felt strange, but it didn't look ugly. The thought was so disloyal to the man I was that I shoved it down immediately, my cheeks flushing hot. The walk to the gilded mug was a gauntlet of new sensations. The way my hips swayed slightly with each step, the feeling of my long hair brushing against my neck and back with the breeze. But most of all, the looks. As Jamie, I was used to being looked at. People recognized me on campus. They'd nod, maybe say "go horns." It was a look of respect, of athletic acknowledgement. This was different. The glances from guys weren't for the picture. They were for the girl. Their eyes lingered, sweeping over my body in a way that was both flattering and deeply invasive. A couple of guys from the football team whistled as I passed. 24 hours ago, I would have high-fived them. Now, I felt a hot blush creep up my neck, and I instinctively wrapped my arms around myself, hunching my shoulders. It was a protective, defensive posture I'd never used in my life. Leo was already there, sitting in the same booth, looking pale and anxious. He was nervously shredding a napkin into a small pile of white fluff. He looked up as I approached, and his eyes widened. He really saw me as Jasmine for the first time, and his jaw went slack. "Jamie," he breathed as I slid into the seat across from him. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He just stared, his eyes tracing the lines of my face, my hair, my shoulders. It wasn't a leer, like the guys on the quad. It was a look of profound, searching disbelief. "It's really you," he whispered. "You have your eyes." "It's me, Leo," I said, my new voice trembling. "I don't know how, the book, the words I read, it did this." He ran a hand through his messy hair, looking utterly lost. "I thought I was going crazy. I woke up this morning, and I just knew. I knew you were supposed to be Jamie Navarro, my roommate from freshman year, but my phone said my best friend was Jasmine Navarro. My memories are scrambled. I remember you as Jamie, but I also remember you as Jazz. I remember teaching you how to throw a curveball for softball. I remember us studying in the library last week, and he gestured vaguely at my female form. "Two sets of memories," I said, nodding. "I have them too. I remember our all-night video game sessions as guys, but I also remember going shopping for dresses with Miranda for the winter formal." The confession hung in the air between us, absurd and terrifying. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the struggle in his face as he tried to reconcile the friend he'd known for years with the person sitting in front of him. "This is insane," he finally said. "We have to fix this." A few weeks passed. Fixing it proved to be impossible. The book offered no clues. The page I'd read from remained stubbornly blank. The other pages were still filled with their cryptic Latin and symbols, but nothing seemed to be a reversal spell. For all we knew, reading another line could turn me into a frog. So I was stuck. I had to live as Jazz. The hardest part was softball. I'd lived and breathed baseball. The power, the precision, the explosive force of a fastball. Softball was a different animal. The field was smaller, the ball bigger, the pitch underhand. My body, this new body, was built for it. My implanted Jazz memories knew the mechanics, but Jamie's mind rebelled. My first day of practice was surreal. I pulled on the uniform sliding shorts that felt like a second skin, knee-high socks, and a snug-fitting jersey with Navarro printed across the back. I had to tie my hair back in a tight ponytail, the unfamiliar weight of it swinging with every movement. Coach put me on the mound. I took the ball. It felt too big, too soft in my slender hand. But as I went into the wind-up, something clicked. Jasmine's muscle memory took over. My arms circled in that smooth, windmill motion, my hip cocked, and my body uncoiled with a fluid grace I didn't know I possessed. The ball flew, a perfect strike. The other girls cheered. "Nice one, Jazz." I stood there, stunned. It wasn't the raw power of Jamie's pitch. It was something else, a flexible, whip-like strength that came from my hips and core. It was powerful in a way I'd never experienced. As I continued to pitch, I felt the long strands of my ponytail lashing against my back, the snug fabric of the uniform moving with me, the different way my body absorbed the impact of landing. It was all alien, and yet it felt strangely right, natural, even. Leo started coming to my practices, leaning against the chain-link fence, his expression unreadable. His presence was a comfort and a torment. He was the only one who knew, but every time I looked at him, I saw the confusion in his eyes. One afternoon, Miranda nudged me as we were packing up our gear. "You see that?" she whispered, nodding toward the fence. "He hasn't taken his eyes off you for the past hour. You've got him hooked. Girl." I felt that blush again, a hot, creeping sensation that was becoming infuriatingly common. "He's just being a supportive friend," I mumbled. "Supportive friends don't look at you like you're the last piece of cake on earth." She laughed. I glanced over at Leo. He was watching me, and when our eyes met, he gave me a small, encouraging smile. But there was something else in his gaze, something deeper than friendship. It was a flicker of admiration, maybe even attraction. Seeing it directed at me, at this new version of me, sent a dizzying, terrifying flutter through my stomach. It was an emotion Jamie had never felt for Leo, but it was an emotion Jasmine knew all too well. Later that night, unable to sleep, I was scrolling through my phone. I found a notes app, one Jasmine had clearly used as a diary. My finger trembled as I opened the most recent entry, dated the night before the curse. "I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell him. It's crazy, but I can't keep it in anymore. Every time Leo smiles at me, I feel like my whole world lights up. I'm going to ask him to the spring formal tomorrow, if I have the courage. God, I hope he says yes." I stared at the words and my vision blurred with tears, the longing, the hope, the fear. It was all there, and it felt like my own. It was Jasmine's confession, but it was echoing in my heart. This life I had been forced into, this girl I was supposed to be. She had been in love with my best friend. And now I was starting to realize maybe I was too. The line between Jamie and Jasmine was starting to blur. Days were spent in the rhythm of this new life classes, softball practice, study sessions with Miranda, but the nights were haunted by the ghost of my past. I'd catch my reflection in a dark window, and for a split second, I'd expect to see a broad-shouldered young man staring back. The sight of the girl with my eyes was still a jolt. My relationship with Leo was the epicenter of my confusion. He was trying so hard. He'd seamlessly switch between calling me Jazz in front of others and quietly using Jamie when we were alone. A secret acknowledgement of the person I used to be, but that acknowledgement was also a barrier. He was my lifeline to my old self, but he was also a constant reminder that I wasn't that person anymore. The tension came to a head one rainy Thursday night. We were in my dorm room, supposedly studying for a midterm. Miranda was out for the night, leaving the room feeling strangely large and quiet. The rhythmic drumming of the rain against the window pane was the only sound besides the rustling of textbook pages. But we weren't really studying. We were orbiting each other, trapped in a silence thick with unspoken things. I couldn't take it anymore. I closed my textbook with a soft thud. I can't do this. Leo. He looked up, his expression wary. Can't do what the chapter's not that bad. This, I said, gesturing to the space between us. Pretending. I see the way you look at me sometimes. It's like you're trying to find him. You're looking for Jamie. My voice cracked on the name. And he's not here. I was overwhelmed by a sudden, desperate need to make him understand, to make him see me, the person I was now, not just the ghost of the friend he'd lost. In a moment of pure, reckless vulnerability, I stood up and walked over to where he was sitting on my bed. I took a deep breath. Look at me, Leo. He did, his brown eyes filled with a sad confusion that broke my heart. Jamie is a memory, I said, my voice barely a whisper, but I'm real. This is real. Before I could lose my nerve, I reached up and hooked my fingers into the collar of my sweater, pulling it down just enough to expose my shoulder and collarbone. The skin was pale and smooth in the lamplight. This is me, Leo. This is who I am now. Not Jamie. Just me, Jazz. The air crackled with a sudden, intense intimacy. His gaze dropped from my eyes to my exposed skin. I saw his throat work as he swallowed hard. His breath hitched. For a heart-stopping second, I thought he was going to reach out, to touch me, to close the distance between us. I saw the impulse flicker in his eyes. But then he flinched. He physically recoiled, pulling back as if he'd been burned. He shot to his feet, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of pure panic. I can't, he stammered, his eyes darting everywhere but at me. I'm sorry. I have to go. I need some time. Before I could say another word, he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me standing in the middle of the room with my sweater pulled aside and my heart sinking like a stone. I felt a wave of shame so hot it made me dizzy. I had offered him a glimpse of my new self, my true self, and he had run. The rejection was absolute. I sank onto my bed and buried my face in my hands, hot, silent tears of humiliation and hurt tracing paths down my cheeks. For the first time, the pain wasn't about losing my old life. It was about being rejected in my new one. I didn't see him the next day. He didn't answer my texts. The silence was agonizing. I walked through my classes in a daze, the world feeling gray and muted. Miranda tried to cheer me up, assuming Leo and I had had a simple fight, but her well-meaning chatter just made me feel more isolated. The day after, I was sitting alone in the campus coffee shop, listlessly stirring a latte I had no intention of drinking. When his shadow fell over my table, I looked up. It was Leo. He looked like he hadn't slept. In his hand, he was holding a cup. "Hey," he said softly, setting the cup down in front of me. It was a caramel latte with extra whipped cream. My favorite, Jasmine's favorite. He slid into the chair opposite me. "I'm an idiot," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm so sorry." I just stared at the cup, my throat too tight to speak. I panicked. He continued, his voice low and earnest. "It wasn't because of you. It wasn't because you're a girl. I think it's because you are a girl, and you're still you, and you were right there, and you're beautiful." And my brain just broke. I was so scared of doing the wrong thing, of crossing some line and messing everything up, messing us up. He finally looked at me, his eyes pleading. "You've always been the most important person in my life, Jamie, and you still are. Jazz, I was just scared." Hearing him say it, hearing him admit that he saw me, Jasmine, as beautiful, sent a shockwave through me. The hurt began to recede, replaced by a fragile, fluttering hope. We sat in silence for a long time, the quiet between us no longer tense, but healing. Finally, a small watery smile touched my lips. "You really are an idiot." He let out a shaky laugh, a look of immense relief on his face. "I know." That moment changed things. The wall between Jamie and Jasmine began to crumble. He stopped trying to separate the two, and so did I. We were just us, but my heart was a battlefield. The closer we got, the more Jasmine's old crush flared up, now fueled by my own confusing, growing feelings. A few days later, I saw it. I was walking past the library and I saw him through the big glass windows, sitting at a table, laughing with another girl. She was pretty, a blonde from his art history class, and she was leaning in close, her hand resting on his arm. A feeling, sharp and ugly, twisted in my gut. It was a possessive, fiery pang that stole my breath. Jealousy. I'd felt it before, as Jamie, back in high school when a rival pitcher got scouted by a team I wanted. It was a competitive jealousy, an envy of skill and opportunity. This was different. This was personal, a deep, aching hurt that was tied completely to the fear of losing him to someone else. I ducked away before they could see me, my heart pounding. I leaned against the cool brick wall of the building, closing my eyes. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just Jasmine's crush. This wasn't just a remnant of a life I'd inherited. This feeling was mine. It was born in this body, in this reality, and it was terrifyingly real. It turns out, loving someone, truly, desperately loving someone, feels exactly the same no matter who you are. The realization didn't solve anything, but it clarified everything. I wasn't just a boy in a girl's body anymore. I was a girl, in heart as well as form, who was completely in love with her best friend. The day of the season opener arrived with a perfect Texas sky, a vast, brilliant blue canvas with only a few wisps of cloud. The air was warm, carrying the scent of cut grass and possibility. This wasn't just any game. It was against our biggest rivals, the Texas A&M Aggies. The stands were already starting to fill up, a sea of burnt orange and maroon. My nerves were a live wire humming under my skin. This was different from any baseball game I'd ever pitched. The stakes felt higher, more personal. This wasn't just about winning for the team. It felt like I had to prove something to myself, that I belonged here, in this uniform, on this mound. In the locker room, the energy was electric. Teammates were laughing, stretching, blasting music from a portable speaker. I pulled on my uniform, the movements now familiar and practiced. The sliding shorts, the crisp white pants, the snug burnt orange jersey. I braided my hair back, my fingers twisting the long strands into a tight, secure plait. The weight of it felt like an anchor, grounding me. As I laced up my cleats, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The girl staring back wasn't a stranger anymore. Her eyes, my eyes, were filled with a fierce, focused determination. She was a pitcher. She was me. We ran out onto the field to a roar from the crowd. I did my warm-up pitches, my arm feeling loose and strong. Each windmill motion was a perfect circle of fluid energy. I wasn't just going through Jasmine's motions anymore. I had made them my own, blending her grace with the competitive fire that had always burned in Jamie. The game was a brutal, hard-fought battle, a true pitcher's duel. For 6 innings, we were locked in a 0-0 tie. I was in the zone, every pitch hitting its mark. My curveball was breaking beautifully, and my riser was practically untouchable. I could feel the Aggies' frustration mounting with every strikeout. In the top of the 7th and final inning, they finally got to me. A walk, a stolen base, and a lucky bloop single over the shortstop's head brought a run in. We went into the bottom of the 7th down 1-0. Our first 2 batters struck out. The mood in the stadium grew tense. It was all down to our last out. And then, a miracle. Our next 2 batters got on base with back-to-back singles. The bases were loaded, and it was my turn to bat. As I walked toward the plate, my heart hammering against my ribs, my eyes scanned the crowd, and I saw him. Leo was there, standing in the front row right behind our dugout. He wasn't cheering or yelling. He was just watching me, his expression intense, his hands gripping the railing in front of him. When our eyes met across the field, he gave me a single, determined nod. It was all I needed. I stepped into the batter's box. The roar of the crowd faded into a dull hum. It was just me, the pitcher, and the 70 feet of dirt between us. The first pitch was a fastball, right down the middle, Strike one. I let it go, getting my timing. The second pitch was a low curveball. I checked my swing. Ball one. I took a deep breath, the smell of the chalk and dirt filling my lungs. I thought about everything. The book, the confusion, the fear, the slow, painful, beautiful journey of becoming this person. I was no longer Jamie, the boy who had lost everything. I was no longer just Jasmine, the girl whose life I had stolen. I was both. I was stronger than either of them had been alone. The pitcher went into her windup. The ball left her hand, a perfect spinning sphere coming right for the heart of the plate. Time seemed to slow down. I swung. The connection was perfect. A clean, solid crack that echoed through the stadium. The ball exploded off the bat, soaring high and deep into the afternoon sky. It flew over the shortstop's head, over the center fielder's outstretched glove. It just kept going, a white speck against the blue, until it cleared the outfield fence. A grand slam. The stadium erupted. The sound was a physical force, a wave of pure joy that washed over me as I dropped the bat and started to run. I rounded the bases in a blur, my feet barely touching the ground. My teammates were screaming, jumping up and down. As I rounded third and headed for home, I saw their faces, ecstatic and waiting for me at the plate. I stomped on home plate and was immediately mobbed, crushed in a hug by a dozen of my teammates, all shouting my name, "Jazz, Jazz, you did it." In that moment of pure, unadulterated triumph, I finally understood. I hadn't lost Jamie's strength. I had transformed it. It was still there, fused with Jasmine's grace and agility. I wasn't a shadow of my former self. I was something new, something whole. Later that night, after the celebrations had died down, Leo texted me, "Meet me, the bench where it all started." I found him sitting on the old weathered park bench by the river, the same one where he'd found the book. The moon was high, casting a silver sheen on the dark water. I sat down beside him. "That was amazing today, Jazz," he said softly, his voice full of awe. "I've never seen anything like it." I felt like myself. I admitted for the first time, I think, really, truly myself. He turned to face me, his expression serious in the moonlight. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said. "About everything. About us." He took a breath. "I don't care about the magic, or the curse, or whatever this is. I don't care if you were Jamie, or if you've always been Jasmine. I just know that the person you are. Right now, you're the person I can't get out of my head. You're the person I can't stand the thought of seeing with anyone else. You're brave, and you're strong, and you're incredible, and I think I'm falling in love with you." His confession hung in the cool night air. My heart stopped, then started again, beating a frantic, joyful rhythm against my ribs. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were happy tears. Leo was all I could manage. He looked so vulnerable, so afraid of my answer, and in that moment, all the fear and confusion I'd been carrying for weeks simply melted away. I knew what I wanted. I leaned in, closing the small space between us, and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, a question, and then, as he responded, wrapping his arms around me and pulling me closer, it deepened. It was a kiss filled with all the unspoken words, all the shared history, and all the new, fragile hope for a future. It felt like coming home. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. I smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. "Then love me," I whispered, my voice full of a certainty I had never known before. "Love me just like this, as I am." He kissed me again, a promise under the moonlight. A light breeze rustled the leaves in the trees above us, and for a fleeting moment, I looked at our reflection in the dark surface of the river. I saw two figures, two silhouettes, melted into one, just like the drawing in the book. When I got back to my dorm room late that night, my heart still soaring, something was sitting on my desk. It was the book. I hadn't seen it since the day after the transformation. Leo and I had hidden it away in a locked trunk at the bottom of his closet, too afraid of what it might do, too uncertain to get rid of it. But here it was, placed squarely in the center of my desk, its dark leather cover seeming to absorb the light from my lamp. My hand trembled as I reached out and touched it. It felt different now, not like a harbinger of chaos, but like a silent observer, a keeper of secrets. I opened it to the first page, to the drawing of the hand mirror with the two faces, the man and the woman, forever joined by their shared gaze. The page was no longer just an illustration. Beneath the drawing, where there had been nothing before, new words had appeared. They were written in the same elegant, archaic script as the rest of the book, but this time they were in English. The mirror only shows what the heart already knows. I read the words over and over, and a profound sense of peace settled over me. It had never been a curse. It was never a punishment or a mistake. It was a catalyst. The magic hadn't forced a change on me. It had simply unlocked a truth that was already there, buried deep inside a boy who had never known to look for it. Jamie's discipline and fire, Jasmine's grace and heart, they were never two separate things. They were two halves of one soul. The book hadn't rewritten my life. It had just revealed the chapter I was always meant to be living. Perhaps Jamie Navarro had to disappear so that Jasmine Navarro could truly be born. Perhaps I had to lose everything I thought I was to finally become the person I was always supposed to be. The journey had been terrifying, a path of confusion and pain, but it had led me here, to a place of self-acceptance, to Leo. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. I saw a young woman with caramel hair and dark, determined eyes. I saw a softball player. I saw a girl in love. I didn't see a trace of Jamie, but I didn't feel his loss anymore. He wasn't gone. He was part of the foundation of who I was now, the strength in my bones, the fire in my soul. With a soft smile, I reached out and closed the book. I didn't need to find a way to reverse the spell. I didn't need to go back. This was my body, my life, my truth. The curse was, in the end, the greatest gift I had ever received. It had given me myself. My name is Jasmine Navarro, and for the first time, that feels completely, utterly, and wonderfully right.